hurricanes in Germany to snowflakes in Malibu. Is the wacky weather a sign of things to come? All that, Lou, coming up right here in The Situation Room.
Thank you, Wolf. Joining me now, our distinguished panel here in Miami. With me, columnist for the New York Daily News, editorial board member Errol Lewis, syndicated columnist Miguel Perez joining us here as well. And from New York, former White House political director, Republican strategist Ed Rollins. Gentlemen, good to have you with us. Miguel, reports tonight that suggest that Fidel Castro could be near death. We just heard Professor Suchlicki talking about what has been an abject failure of U.S. policy in Latin America. What are the implications, in your judgment, first, from the idea that Venezuela now has a dictator?
Absolutely has a dictator. The opposition made terrible mistakes in Venezuela. They decided not to run against him in 2005. So the whole Congress over there, 167 members, are controlled by him. He controls the courts. He controls everything in Venezuela now. He's the dictator-elect of Venezuela.
And does he automatically become the single strongest influence should Fidel Castro die?
Absolutely, and that's what he's been saying all along. It's amazing that the Venezuelan people didn't see this coming, because he's been warning them that he wants to be the next Fidel. And they keep voting for him. That's what's amazing.
Let's turn, if we may, Errol, to the issue of those reinforcements, which the first of which have now arrived in Baghdad. There is a major confrontation, obviously, now that will be taking place next week on non-binding resolutions to stop the president. What's your take?
Well, the fighting is going to be happening in Washington, unfortunately, and not on the streets of Baghdad. I mean, you've got these ambushes going on. I mean, you mentioned a soldier killed today.
Yes.
Earlier this week, a really tragic death, a young lady from Ohio, Andrea Parhamovich, who was teaching democracy, sort of one of the civilian workers who have gone over there to commit. She was killed along with 3 of her bodyguards. They were outgunned 10-1. And they're setting up these new brigades that are going in for a similar kind of a situation where it's clearly not enough, even by the Pentagon's own standards, to put down a counterinsurgency.
Are you suggesting then that President Bush send even more?
Well, I'm suggesting that if they're going to accomplish the goals as stated, they need to do what they said that they need to do, which is 50-1 peacekeepers to population.
Which is supportive of what?
120,000 people.
Which is supportive of what Senator McCain has said. Ed Rollins, this president does not have the ability to send the troop levels that either Errol Lewis or Senator McCain are talking about, does he?
No, he doesn't. You know, the bottom line is for the next 6 months, he's going to get his way, and the 25,000 men or women who are going to go there are going to basically be put somewhat in more harm's way than they should be, because there's not sufficient troops. But at the end of the day, you know, there's no guarantee that either the Iraqi army is going to cooperate, and certainly if they're going to have a leadership role in trying to command where our troops go, then I think you have a potential disaster. But needless to say, the Democrats are waving resolutions in the air, and I think to a certain extent they got to understand the commander-in-chief has made this decision, and for the next 6 months we have to watch it, hope, pray that it comes out better than it has in the last 4 years.
And Ed, let me ask you quickly, this president appears to be becoming more isolated by the day. What is going on in this White House?
He hasn't changed the thought process that he's now a president with a minority party in the Congress, which means he really has to go to a Ford or even a Reagan, where you start vetoing things and you start putting the threat of veto up there. This whole idea of I'm going to have a great cooperation with Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid is absolutely absurd. They're not going to cooperate with him one iota, and so he's got to get himself into a mindset that for the next 2 years to get anything done, I'm going to basically have to veto and push things back and force Congress to deal with me from that perspective.
Miguel?
And even when you hear the Prime Minister of Iraq, al-Maliki, criticizing Bush.
Right.
I mean, that is the ultimate now. I mean,
he is, after all, reciprocating.
I mean, this guy should be expressing his gratitude for the sacrifice America has made for his country instead of criticizing him. They say, no, this is for Iraqi consumption. Right. What about U.S. consumption? Bush is up against the wall here. He should be trying to protect his protector.
I don't think that we have seen from the Iraqi government, or certainly from many of the Iraqi people, in point of fact, certainly in Baghdad, any sense of discrimination in either the subjects of their violence or the direction that they're taking this country. Errol, the idea that this president is isolated, that he has, and this is, I will, if Ed does not correct me, we're talking about a lame duck president facing a very powerful new Congress. What are the prospects for President Bush?
Well, he's got to argue for his own relevance at this point. And you know, we have a system where the head of government is also the head of state. A loss of prestige for this administration, inevitably, especially on foreign affairs, amounts to a loss of prestige in the world. And that's why you're seeing Iran getting bolder, China getting bolder,
so are the
Venezuela, and so on.
So is the Democratic. Go ahead.
I mean, the critical point is that the world can now watch disarray in our own government, in which there's not a consistency, in which the bottom line is we're at war, and whether it's going well or not, we're still at war. We now have countries around us basically looking at us as in disarray, and they see that the Democrats in Congress obviously are basically getting revved up to go fight the president, and so we're once again in a short battle plan, knowing full well that 6 or 8 months from now they'll force us to pull back. And what kind of strength does that project?
What kind of strength does it project on the part of the Democrats to get their principal legislative priorities through in less than half their 100 hours?
I don't think that half of them will get through. I think maybe the minimum wage, certainly not stem cell research because they don't have the power to override the president's veto. I think it's, you know, it's all rhetoric on their part.
They brought forward their agenda. They got it moved in the time that they said they would. Now the hard part begins. The polls are saying that 61% of the public still thinks the country's on the wrong track. Increasingly, that's going to be the Democrats' fault.
Okay. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Ed Rollins in New York, Errol Lewis here in Miami, and Miguel Perez. Thank you. Still ahead, the results of our poll. We'll have some more of your thoughts. Stay with us.